One of the absolute best ways to balance your footage inside of Davinci Resolve is by setting the gamma of one of your nodes to linear and using the gain wheel. But what if I told you that there's an even better way of doing this that gives you the exact same results while also giving you the ability to use your offset wheel and your printer light hotkey keyboard shortcuts? My name is Cotton, and if you're new to the channel, make sure you smash that subscribe button and let's get straight into the video. A common method that colorists are starting to use to properly adjust the exposure and white balance of their images is to set the gamma of a node to linear and then setting the luma mix to 0, because this is pretty much like adjusting the exposure and white balance in camera. But after a lot of messing around, clicking a bunch of buttons and just seeing what everything in Resolve actually does, I discovered that setting the gamma of a node to stops 18% gray essentially does the same thing. As you can see here, I'm adjusting the exposure of this test image using the gain wheel. Now if I go to the stops node, I can use the offset wheel and adjust my exposure and pretty much line it up 1 to 1. I'm talking about 100% identically, same curve and everything. So I swipe back and forth, you can see there's no change in the curve or the image. It's the same thing for adjusting your white balance as well. If I go to the linear node and then use the gain wheel to add some warmth into the image, you can see the curve separating and what the curve looks like. So now I'm going to grab a still, and then if I go to the stops node and then bring up a side by side of the linear node, I can use my offset wheel and then change the RGB values to match it up again 100% identically. So I'm just gonna make some adjustments, tweak the blue, tweak the green, a little more of the red, a little more blue. Just keep finessing it until everything's lining up perfectly. Just a little more here, a little more in the blue. Just trying to get it as perfect as I can. Now if I swipe back and forth, again, you can see there's no change in the image or the curve. Now I'm about to demonstrate this in action on an actual image. I'm going to make 2 nodes. I'm going to set one to linear, and then I'm going to set one to stops, change the linear node's gamma to linear, and then change the luma mix to 0. Then I'm going to go back to the stops node and reset the gamma back to stops 18% gray. When it's in stops, you do not need to set the luma mix to 0. Then I'm going to apply the warmth we added using linear gain on the test image to the linear node on the real image. I'm going to go back to the test image and I'm going to bring up a side by side, and my goal here is to use stops 18% gray to neutralize this image back to its base before I added any warmth. And all I need to do here is use the offset wheel. I'm going to bring down some red, bring down the green a little bit, bring up the blue, and it takes just a little bit of time because I want to get it as perfectly accurate as I can. And now as you can see, if I swipe back and forth on the test image, you're not really going to see any changes. It's 100% neutral back to its base. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab a still of this. I'm going to change the label to neutral. Then I'm going to go back to my actual image. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to that still we just captured, go to display node graph. I'm going to drag the changes that we just made on the test image using stops to the stops node on the actual image. You can see this is set to stops. You can see the first node is set to linear. So as you can see, there's pretty much no change. The image is 100% back to neutral. So if I turn everything off, grab a still, I'll change the label of this to base because there's no changes made. Turn everything back on, and then if I bring up a side by side and swipe back and forth, as you can see, it's pretty much like we never even touched the image. The benefit of using this method is you can get the exact same results you would using linear gain, but now you can enable your printer light hotkeys and use your keyboard shortcuts. I have my master exposure set to plus and minus, my RGB, magenta, cyan, yellow, and everything set up to the F key keyboard shortcuts. So now I can just bring my exposure down by clicking minus on the keyboard, and then I can go over to my vector scope and I can use my F keys to adjust my white balance, and this just makes everything super quick. Just a couple keyboard shortcuts. You can balance your image super fast. So yeah, that's gonna do it for this video. If you found it to be useful, make sure you give this video a thumbs up, drop me a comment, share the video with all of your friends, and I'll see y'all in the next one.